and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who loves that knockout round drama. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, my friend. I do indeed.
So the round of 16 in the Women's World Cup it's not just upon us, it's halfway through.
It is.
We have 4 games to review on today's show. What's been the most dramatic so far? What's delivered the most knockout punch for the money?
I mean, I think the most dramatic would be England-Cameroon, but maybe not for on the field, quality of play reasons.
This means we're going to have to talk about VAR later.
Oh, 100% we are. Because my view has changed a little bit. Not entirely, but I have some thoughts on VAR.
All right.
I think the most dramatic game, in terms of the result and the actual play, was maybe Norway-Australia, or maybe France. And who did France beat today? France-Brazil. There we go. Thank you.
Please pick one.
I'm going to go Norway-Australia. Norway-Australia. It goes to penalties. There's some VAR in there. There's some disallowed goals. There's a red card. Yeah, I think. And then it's an upset. But it's kind of an upset that I think people felt was coming.
It also felt to me like the first proper dramatic knockout game, because Germany really took care of Nigeria pretty fast, right? It was 2-0 pretty quickly. And I was watching it. I was like, oh, no, the drama's gone.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right?
Do you want to start there?
Yeah, let's start with Germany-Nigeria.
All right.
In the 20th minute, it's an Alexandra Popp header from a corner. It's weirdly predictable. You could have guessed that Alexandra Popp would be scoring headers from corners in the knockout rounds.
See, but the thing there is that if you can guess it, then it probably should have been a thing that people were defending against.
Yeah.
And Nigeria kind of weren't.
Well, let's talk about Nigeria's defending then. I would argue that they're defending in a zone, but the zone didn't quite attack the ball enough.
Yes,
yeah?
I think that's 100% true.
Right?
Yeah.
And then if you defend in a zone, you're not marking the player, and that's why Popp, basically when you watch this goal, it looks like, oh, nobody's marking it. It's the classic, failure of zonal marking leads people to think it's a failure of man marking.
Yes, it is. Or that's what people think. But it's also the case that when I first watched this, and this is where Daryl, the nuances of zonal marking is Daryl's expertise. Because when I first watched this, it looked for a moment like Nigeria switched off, because there's some players who do try to track Popp a little bit.
Yeah.
But Daryl makes the point that, no, that's just them being like, oh, no, wait, she's leaving my zone and I can't track her anymore.
That's the problem,
and
right?
And it is the kind of negative side of the zonal system.
Yeah, and as Popp moves through the zones, each player is like, me, no, you, me, no, to you, to me. Yeah.
It's a Knight of the Roxbury situation.
And then what actually should have happened is, when you're in a zone, you're supposed to attack the ball, right? That's the point, is you're not distracted by trying to mark Alexandra Popp or any other player. You can just attack the ball. But Shula is at the front post, and the 2 players who maybe should have headed the ball away, she makes a jump at the ball and at least knocks them off their balance a little bit. So there's no way for Nigeria to clear the ball.
Right.
And that's why. And then Alexandra Popp is there.
But there is a tiny bit of drama here.
There is
VAR on this one.
Yeah.
Hoot is standing in an offside position when Popp gets the header, not when the corner is taken. Key point there.
Yeah.
And standing, as we've established in this Gold Cup, as happened with Carly Lloyd and as happened with Sam Kerr.
You mean World Cup?
The tournament? What did I say?
Gold Cup's the other one.
Oh boy, I'm all over the place. But as happened with those 2 players in their respective games, simply being in an offside position does not mean that you're actively involved in the play. I think the replay was to make sure that Huth doesn't actively try to obstruct any sort of vision or anything.
Or isn't in the line of sight for Nnadozie.
Yeah.
The key thing is, I know you spotted this as well, right? Before Popp actually heads the ball, Nnadozie moves Huth out the way.
Yes.
So I think Huth was interfering, but because Nnadozie takes action and just gives you a little shove, which is kind of fine, right? You want to if you're a keeper, you want to clear your area, make sure you're not obstructed. But because she's done that, when Popp heads the ball, then Hoot is no longer in a position to obstruct.
Because when she kind of...
Nnadozie solved her own problem and then created her own problem accidentally.
Yeah. And to clarify, when Hoot gets shoved out of the way, it's when the corner has been taken, is in the air. So you can't be offside on the corner. So there she's not offside. She's not active. Well, she is actively involved in the play, but it doesn't really matter because you can't be offside. Then by the time the header happens, she's out of the way.
Yep.
So even though she's in the area, is in an offside position, is not actively involved, I think, and especially given the way they've been calling it, correct decision for VAR.
And there's a danger we've overanalyzed this because the basis is Alexandra Popp, very good in the air. 1-0 Germany in the 20th minute. And then in the 27th minute, there's that penalty kick.
Yeah.
This is not pretty.
It's not, especially because it's, forgive my pronunciation again, but Nwabwoku, I think
so, yeah.
She's the one who's dispossessed in the beginning of
by
this.
Alexandra Popp?
Indeed.
Involved again.
And then basically gets back into position in the box to make a play on the ball, goes to clear it, whiffs/barely touches the ball, and instead makes a lot of contact with Australia's...
Germany's...
why do I keep doing this? Man, I'm all over the place.
Because we have a lot of games to talk about today.
All right, I'm going to focus up. Here we go.
My favourite German player.
Yes.
Lena Magul.
There we go.
It's Lena Magul who sort of takes
that's right. because you were nervous
of this missed clearance from Nuoboku.
Even watching it in studio, rewatching it again in studio, Daryl was nervous that Magul was going to have to be subbed out. I was like, this game's already happened.
She did sub out later, right? But I don't think for this incident. No. I think she's still good. I think there's more Magul to come in the tournament. I love her energy because she's all over the place.
Germany made 2 halftime substitutions, and then Magul comes off in like the 67th. I think all of those felt like we've got this in the bag. We're going to rest some players now.
I will wipe some sweat from my brow then.
There you go.
But there's more to come because our air conditioning is broken.
This is true.
Here in the studio. Hopefully just for today, right? Hopefully just for today.
We shall see.
So this Nuoboku...
Nice and sweaty in here.
This Nuoboku foul... it's sort of a piece with we've seen some other penalty kicks given where players have cleared the ball but then followed through and made contact.
Engen from Norway on Tarrant for France. Yep,
exactly. But this is maybe the most obvious of all of them because she barely touches the ball. Right? She she sort of scuffed the outside of the ball.
Yes,
but then most of the contact goes to Magul's leg.
Yes, and so it's definite contact, definitely a bad challenge, so it would be a foul there. It also takes out Magul, so then because the ball hasn't been cleared, because there's very little contact, the ball's still playable, so then it also removes the ability of Magul to play the ball, which is still in the box, so even there, it's another foul.
There's no argument, right?
No.
And De Britz steps up, puts the penalty away. 2-0 Germany after about 30 minutes.
Yes.
And this game was kind of over at this point.
Yes, it was, but I do think that the other story of, like a minor story, a subplot to this game, and I would say the Australia-Norway game, I got it right this time, it is sort of teams that have been there before knowing how to operate, and teams that are like confident having been there before. Because I think you saw with these kind of mistakes from Nigeria, from Nwaboku, and then the third goal as well is just a very, very bad giveaway from, I think, Allende.
Do we have to talk about this goal?
No.
I suppose let's quickly mention it. So Allende, I think she started midfield, but she ended up playing left back. I'm assuming Nwaboku was subbed out because she wasn't doing so well.
Right.
Allende sort of gets the ball cut under her feet, then tries to play it back to, is it Ohale, her centre-back, and the pass is no good, and it's essentially a through ball for Schuler, who just one-time finishes it.
Which should be a warning sign to whomever wins the Canada, I forget who's Canada.
It's Canada versus Sweden, and then the winner plays Germany in the quarterfinal.
That should be a thing that either one of those teams is alive to, that Schuler can shoot on first touch, on instinct, and finish like bottom corner, far corner. It was a lovely finish, but to my point was like that. This, to me, was sort of once the team starts to get nervous, once the team that hasn't been there or is trying to kind of fight their way back, you can start to see those kind of mistakes of mentality in that moment. And I think it was a sort of like, I'm coming under pressure. I don't want to make a mistake. I'm just going to try to pass the ball back and make a safe pass. But because there's that pressure, because there's that anxiety, those nerves, it ends up being a bad back pass.
I mean, you could say that for goals 2 and 3 in this game, right? The foul and the bad back pass. Anything else to say on Germany-Nigeria before we move on to the game that you said was full of drama, Australia versus Norway?
Just this, that it feels like Germany have been the team that haven't necessarily impressed in some of those games. They found a way to win. Like, it's a strange thing to say about a team that I believe has won all their games, but still hasn't quite, like the China game where they end up scoring from distance.
There hasn't been like a lights-out performance where it's like, oh, Germany,
But this, I would say, kind of was. That it's 2 early goals, it's getting people off at halftime, it's resting players, and it felt like a fairly comprehensive victory, even if in the second half, Nigeria did kind of play their way back in and get some chances. And
it's also scarily introducing a new weapon. Because I didn't know much about Schuler. I thought the striking partnership was Pop and maybe Hoot. So suddenly you've got Schuler in the mix and Hoot can play on the wing. Like, it's almost like they're adding attackers as they go. At least they're adding attackers to my knowledge base of Germany.
That's fair. It can be both.
I'm sure the coach knew about them before I did.
I'm not sure.
I hope she did.
You did some good previewing. You may have known more.
I did, but she seems very good at her job.
She does.
Should we talk Australia-Norway?
Let's do it.
So, in regular time, this finished 1-1.
Yeah.
After extra time, this finished 1-1, but Australia were down to 10 players. And then on penalty kicks, it was a massacre.
It was.
I guess the actual penalty kick score is 4-1.
Yes,
it
was. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Australia didn't take their 4th one because at that point you can't catch up, but they did miss 2, so not a strong showing.
It was kind of a mercy rule on penalty kicks.
Yeah, I guess kind of was.
That's not the real rule, but essentially, right? It's when it's mathematically impossible, as Ralph Wiggum would say.
Me fail English?
Me fail penalties? That's impossible.
I enjoyed this game because my wife, as I think I've mentioned, either on Twitter or on the show or both, has been studying for the bar every waking hour of every waking day. Sometimes she sleeps 2 days, apparently.
She's working harder than we are.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But this one did get her attention, this game, and it was sort of like she doesn't always enjoy watching soccer because she feels like she's not like quick enough in the moment to see like what teams are doing tactically.
Right.
And it was the most ridiculous. Like, she turned around and watched for 5 minutes, and she was like, "Why is why is Norway just attacking down one side? It seems like they're just focusing everything down that channel. And then I think moments after she pointed that out, Norway scored. And down that channel through this combination, I was like, that's a thing I should probably pay attention to.
So did you guys further that conversation? Why were Norway just going down the one channel?
It was actually, it's a thing that...
the right side, is that what you said? They were going down the right, okay.
Yes, and... here's Daryl's been replaced, is what I have to say. It's a thing that you and I usually do, where we'll notice a pattern and then we'll kind of start investigating, like pulling at that thread a little bit and being like, okay, why is this happening? And then we'll see something else happening. We'll be like, okay, why is that happening? And basically, my opinion is that essentially Norway were trying to maximize their strengths and minimize Australia's strengths in the same kind of fell swoop.
Can I take a guess at what it means?
You sure can.
Okay, so Caroline Graham-Hansen.
Yep.
Very good, very dribbly attacking player that they have. Mm-hmm. She likes to go down the right.
She does.
Ellie Carpenter, Australia's right back, is maybe their most, maybe their best crosser, maybe the most dangerous player. When she gets forward, it's a lot of Ellie Carpenter overlaps from right back, gets crosses in. So the second point is keep the ball away from her.
That would be my feeling.
I would also submit that Kellen Knight is a midfielder who is playing left back to just fill a position, essentially.
You are correct.
Right? So it's a not natural left back, and maybe your best attacking dribbling player, and the other side has their best attacking player, so go down the right.
Yes.
Well done, Norway.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, but because of that, then Carpenter has to tuck inside a little bit and stay home a little bit more.
Yeah.
So even if they can eventually get the ball onto that side, it's still starting from a deeper position. But I also think the other factor in this for Norway was Sævik, the right winger or right midfielder for Norway, who I think also very good at holding the ball up for a moment, can also play quickly. But I think that combination of the players you mentioned there, of Graham-Hansen, and then Sævik, and then also Orlovsson, even kind of overloading on one side, coming into that side as well.
Oh, so it's like all their best players are on that side, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. And it pulls Australia over.
Yeah.
And I think also because of that, when Australia would have to kind of send numbers over to deal with that overload, when they would win the ball back, they also are in a situation where now they're kind of out of position. They've had midfielders pull over. Maybe Sam Kerr has gone to take away the right back for Norway, and now suddenly kind of your only option, or what seemed to be their only option, were long balls over the top. And it felt like Australia, the times that they could settle, you would see good chances, you would see good build-up, but it felt like too often they were looking for that ball into Sam Kerr. And I think rewatching with you in studio, I have an idea why. Aside from that, Sam Kerr is very good.
I mean, I think part of the problem here is Australia were very predictable. It was either longish balls to Sam Kerr or get crosses in to Sam Kerr, but none of it was particularly accurate, right? When you're doing it from distance like that, then you're just inviting Norway's centre-backs. Is it Torresdottir? And I've forgotten the other centre-back, but she was also Mjelde. Were both, I think, really good at dealing with Sam Kerr, both in the air and on the floor.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the other point I wanted to make there is I think they were, except for in the first minute. And inside, 30 seconds?
In the 24th second, there's a great... I've forgotten who plays the through ball, but it's an excellent little run from Kerr. She cuts inside and she shoots. I think she's going for the inside of the near post, and she's off by, 2 inches?
Yeah, if that. Yeah. I think it might have been Caitlin Ford. I might be wrong on that. Okay. But that is the one time where she's able to get past the defender, gets the shot off, and it did feel like from that moment on, for at least the first 30 minutes... I think Australia thought, that's on every day because it was on the first 30 seconds. And in reality, I think maybe that was, again, Norway having not really been there recently, or maybe in that moment feeling like, this could be our chance, but maybe also not. A little bit of nerves. I think that was kind of a nervous moment for them. And after that, they played lights out defense. And really, there's one even a couple minutes later where Mjelde just stands Sam Kerr up, puts her on, knowing that she wants to be on her right foot, and then just pokes the ball away.
It's actually right before Norway score their goal. It's the play before Norway score their goal. I think you spotted this, that essentially they figured out Sam Kerr, super right foot. I'm sure they knew this before, right?
Yeah.
But essentially, show her to her left, block her on her right, and you can take away maybe 50% of what Sam Kerr can do to you.
Yeah. Right? I mean, as evidenced by when Australia do score and Sam Kerr is offside, she scores with an outside of the right foot trivela.
Yeah, it's a very Jordan Morris type goal, right?
It was. Yeah. But it's interesting that once you take that away and you limit the service to Sam Kerr, Australia, it felt like...
Yeah, what else you got, Australia?
An Olympico is basically the answer. But we can talk about that one in a minute because we should probably talk about Norway's goal first.
Before we talk about Norway's goal, I also want to talk about one extra thing that I think Norway did really well is when Australia did get the ball out wide and they were looking to cross to Sam Kerr, Norway had their 4-4-2 and they would essentially shuffle over and just have numbers crowd that side. Yep. So even if Ellie Carpenter got forward and she's with, was it Ratso, I believe, started the game down on the right, there was still they were never... Australia never had an overload. It was always the other way around. Norway had a defensive overload, so there's very little room because you need space to put a good cross in.
Yeah,
right?
I'm with you.
Even David Beckham needs some room to whip in a cross, right? If you all stand in front of him, he can't do it.
I mean, to the point that I think there's one in the first 15 or so where Carpenter does fire in a cross. She does find herself in space, but she finds herself in space in the right channel, probably 30 yards from goal.
Yeah.
And when she crosses, it ends up going straight to Yumseth.
The Norwegian keeper.
I'm still learning my Norwegian, so I apologize because I've been calling her Hjemsmeth, and that's not right. Hjemsmeth is able to just calmly...
You give yourself a hernia on the first part.
A little bit. But she comes out and just calmly collects that ball. And if you go back and watch, Ford and Kerr haven't even made it into the 18 when that ball is more or less in the goalkeeper's hands.
That should be a tell that there wasn't really room for that cross. It was never on. So honestly, well done Norway for shutting down most of Australia's options.
Yes.
And well done Norway for scoring a really nice looking goal in the 31st minute. It's the Olafsson goal. It's got two beautiful passes in the build-up.
I mean, it's Engen in the middle who was ice cold throughout this game and just sort of ice water in the veins. She scores the winning penalty, calm. Right? She scores the winning penalty, but here collects the ball, does have bodies around her, but not enough that there really cause her much hassle, but enough that it could be kind of blocking off options, forcing her backwards instead. It's a nice driven ball into the feet of Sevic out wide.
Yeah. I call this a round the corner pass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the angle's not really there, but she manages to shape her foot to bend it out to Sevic on the wing.
And I can't remember if Sevic takes a touch or if it's a first-time ball in for Olafsson, but it's just from the touchline around midfield. It's basically a V from Engen to Sevic and then out to Olafsson. And it's an amazingly well-struck ball because it's out into space. It's ahead of Olafsson to run onto. It kind of exploits the lack of pace for Australia, but then also it tempts, I think, Lydia Williams, who seemed to be, for Australia, who seemed to be off her line throughout the game. I think if the ball was at midfield, she was outside of her 18. She seemed to be playing very high. But I think it tempts her into coming for the ball, but then also isn't anywhere close enough for her to actually make a play on it.
She kind of comes out and then just plants herself. Yeah. And then she's kind of an easy target to beat, right? I felt like if Williams had come out, she should have just kept coming and gone down at Olafsson's feet or made it much, much harder. Made herself bigger instead of just standing there, basically.
I think so. I think she's sort of hard done by Catley, the left centre-back for Australia.
She could have cut this ball out, right? If she just lifted her leg up, I think she would have got in the way.
I think she misreads either the trajectory or the skip on the ball because it bounces, and maybe that's a spot where it had gotten some more water in the pre-game watering, so maybe that ball moves just a little bit faster.
It's a weird pass from Sevic as well, right? So it's kind of hard to judge the spin on that ball.
It's a bouncy, pacey ball, but not pacey enough to get to Lydia Williams, and instead, basically Catley has to pull out of it, so it goes in, and it's Olafsson, one touch, second touch finish, 1 foot, 2 foot.
Is it worth talking about Kennedy, the other centre-back?
Yes, it is.
So Catley was fronting, but Kennedy was with Olafsson. And it's just a straight sprint, right, for that ball. And Olafsson ends up a good few yards in front of Kennedy.
Kennedy legitimately looks like she's running in sand.
Yeah.
And knowing how this game ends and knowing that Kennedy does get sent off in extra time for a sort of the line has been broken, she is the last defender, she makes a play and it doesn't quite come off, you can kind of see how her lack of pace here, and it leads to a Norway goal, maybe informs her thinking later on.
That makes sense, yeah. All right, before we get to Australia's equaliser, there were 2 VAR moments in this game. In the 41st-ish minute, towards the end of the first half, there's a penalty called on Torresdottir for handball that is then... So the referee calls it, they check for VAR, and I think the video clearly shows it hits... At best, her shoulder. At worst, her shoulder. Fair? Maybe her chest, maybe her shoulder. Definitely not her arm.
Here's the thing. I would say that it's not... I would say, it definitely hits her, pectoral area because you can see the jersey, on her chest move. Yeah. It definitely seems like it hits at least a little bit of her arm because I feel like you can see some of them also move. It does seem like it hits her shoulder.
Arm, do you mean shoulder or do you mean actual forearm?
Oh, not forearm, but somewhere in between shoulder and forearm.
Okay.
So I guess whatever that would be. I don't work out enough to know. But I think... so I would say that. But I think the telling thing here is that it's initially given as a penalty and then it is reviewed and deemed not to be a penalty. And so I think... Even though I would say maybe it was closer to being a handball in my definition.
Oh, really?
I don't think... I thought it was definitely pectoral, but maybe it also gets a little bit of the arm. But I think it's telling that the referee does have a look at it and makes the decision to overturn her initial call.
Yeah, and I think also her silhouette is... Her arms are by her sides, right? She's not they're not flapping out there.
It's because she drops the shoulder, I think, is the only thing that throws it off a little bit for me. But yes, I think for the most part, I agree with you.
But are we in agreement this is basically a correct decision?
Yes.
A good use of VAR?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, I wasn't sure... I feel like I tend to have a decent idea when it goes to VAR if the goal is going to stand or not because of the way it's been called and because of some of the conversations we've had with people who know how VAR works.
Yeah.
This was one where I was very uncertain if it was going to be called back.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right, and then Sam Kerr in the 60th, 59th minute scores that outside of the foot offside goal. I think this is a simple case of they let the play run, and then we check if it was offside afterwards, right? The flag goes up late, essentially.
Yes, which I don't love, but that's the way they're doing it.
And it does lead to more goals, right? But yeah, I understand why it's annoying for some people. But Sam Kerr was offside, and there's no debate about that. They do get the equaliser.
They do.
Australia. It's Kellen Knight. She puts... So I figured out Australia's code. You know, you do like one arm in the air. Kellen Knight, when she puts one arm in the air, it means I'm going to score an Olympico.
That makes sense.
This one's going straight in. That's what she means.
Yeah. Next World Cup around, we should make sure we remember that if she's still there.
Yeah, and everyone should defend that.
Yeah. Okay.
So obviously that's not what she's going for.
Not so much.
She's going for kind of like USA versus Sweden, right? She's going for the low ball bent in towards the near post so that someone can maybe get a flick on. But in the end, no one else touches it, and this ball just bends right in.
Yep. And I think there's a couple of things at play here. Again, it's a sort of chaos in the box. Nobody wants to make too dramatic of a play on the ball because it's a little bit of a scrum. There's always a chance
no one wants the own goal, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Or just to concede a penalty or to barge into somebody accidentally because you're trying to make a play on the ball and not paying attention to the player.
Yep.
I think that's part of it. But I think also another big one is that in that moment of chaos, I think breeds indecision. And here you have, is it Risa who backs up?
Yeah, recent number 8 backs into Jan Smith, her own keeper.
Yeah.
And I think in backing up, she blocks the keeper from making a play on it. But it's really the big mistake of this goal.
But she backs up because basically she's trying to open up. I'm going to assume she's right-footed. She tries to open up to be able to kind of swing through and just hit it with her right foot.
Yeah.
But again, because the ball is coming in, because there's bodies around, instead of just kind of going to it and like chesting it down or just making any play, thighing it down or thighing it out of bounds and letting the play reset, she kind of backs off to let the ball come to her. And then ends up backing into the goalkeeper. There's contact, and that's why I think nobody's able to make a play in the end.
I think this is honestly a case of too many players on the 6-yard line, and if Norwegian players had just cleared out the way, Jan Smith could have just dealt with this herself.
Yeah, I think so.
That might be the way to deal with these types of low corner kicks, which have become like a weird feature of this World Cup, right? It's at least the second one we've seen be successful, if you count the US one as well. And I'll bet it's been tried many other times as well.
Yes, it did feel like Australia went, and maybe they have been, but it's just because the yellow jerseys have made me feel like there's a connection to Sweden. That, like, I think we've talked about with Sweden was kind of putting a lot of bodies inside the 6-yard box and almost ringing the goalkeeper. That's what Australia did here. And I am thinking it's sort of drive the ball into the box, we'll get bodies in there. Maybe there's contact, maybe there's a handball, maybe there's just a scrum, but it did seem like they were kind of aiming for driven ball and hopeful chaos.
Do you want to talk about the Kennedy red card, or have we already touched on that?
Just
so in extra time, 104th minute, Kennedy, Australian centre-back, gets a red card for denial of goal-scoring opportunity.
Yeah, and this is one of those where, like, I think maybe it's just like your like fandom or rooting interest comes into this, because for me this is a clear red card. It's outside the box. She's not making a play on the ball. She's playing the player, which is dogso, denial of goal-scoring opportunity.
It's Utland, right? Utland is through on goal.
Yeah. And I think we went back and watched. It does end up as Utland goes down because she's pulled down. Lydia Williams is again way off her line. She collects the ball right at the top of the 18, but I think there's a chance that maybe Utland is going to get there, and so that's why I think Kennedy just has that momentary flash of like, oh no, I could be beaten for this one. I don't want to be exposed again. And she does.
She grab jersey?
Yes.
She does, yeah.
And
pulls it down.
Yeah, and I think this is one where if you don't have a bunch of cameras, if you just have a referee and 2 ARs, I think she gets away with it because it is sort of
sneaky.
If you see it, from behind as they're running, you can't really see the jersey pull. But when you see it
looks just like shoulder to shoulder,
it does. And then when you flip it around, though, from the goalkeeper's perspective and that camera, it's very clear. Kennedy grabs the whole jersey and does not let go. Maybe grabbed more than the jersey, it seems, by the way. By the reaction, yeah. But I think it's absolutely that momentary flash of I might be beaten. She could be in, I'm pulling her down, and then, red card.
But that isn't what loses
and the
Australia.
moment of, and the kind of, like, immediate protestation of, like, I didn't do that. There was no contact. Whenever you're like, there was no contact at all.
The thing that just happened didn't happen.
Yeah.
You didn't see what you just saw. That was Kennedy's protest.
Yeah, but it's like when, I don't know how to explain, I don't have a good analogy for this, but it's like if you commit a foul and you commit a foul, you do the, like, I know. But just as soon as, like, there's maybe contact and you turn around, like, I didn't do anything at all, and if you say I did, you're a liar. It's like, now you're protesting a bit too much.
Weirdly, that wasn't what cost Australia the game.
No.
What cost Australia the game was what they did from 12 yards out in the penalty shootout. And I feel bad saying this, but I honestly think Sam Kerr's mistake on the first penalty kick set the tone for the rest of her teammates.
Yes.
I think that's where this all falls apart for Australia.
I agree. And it's strange to go back and watch because in the moment, I kind of expected, like, oh, Sam Kerr, first penalty taker for Australia.
Shark eyes.
She comes up after Hansen, and Hansen scored hers. You expect Sam Kerr to kind of set that tone, as you said. And then watching it, like, I found myself being, like, live thinking, is she nervous? Like, I did not expect this.
Because I think of her as such like a cold-eyed assassin, and that's what she's been. But I think the moment for me was when I saw her keep moving the ball on the spot and not being happy with how the ball was sitting on the spot.
Yeah.
I've had that experience. I know that you're just overthinking it at that point. You're absolutely overthinking it.
Yes. And then I think also she overthinks it by trying to disguise her shot. Because when we watch it together, her plant foot kind of goes far out in front of where it should, and her shooting foot ends up kind of instep up almost. So you can tell basically, I think that she's trying to fool Smith, the goalkeeper, by sending her the wrong way, and she does. But then she also oversells it and puts it up and over the bar and wide of the bar.
Yeah, and then you can tell Australia are just... I feel like the rest of the takers are just like, oh, Sam Kerr missed.
Yeah, and contrasting that with Norway, who were like, those are 4 expertly taken penalties.
Yep.
I tweeted, I loved Mjelde's penalty because it just felt like such a, like, we're not letting you back into the game.
It was a no-nonsense penalty.
Yeah, right? But that just felt like from a narrative, like not from like reality standpoint, but just narrative. I was like, this feels like a penalty she's going to miss to keep the kind of hopes alive and maybe Australia have a chance.
Yeah.
And then she just buried that thing. And it was like, oh, okay, so that's that.
So that was the decisive one. Engen was the one that actually made it mathematically impossible and made the mercy rule happen.
And again, ice in the veins, just calmly dispatched, side foots it, bottom corner, and then just kind of casually runs off celebrating. I enjoy that immensely.
So we do know that in the next round, Norway will be playing England.
Yes.
We're going to talk more about England's game against Cameroon up next. But first, today's Total Soccer Show is sponsored by SeatGeek, our friends at SeatGeek, spelled SeatGeek. I'm just saying that because some people, when I say it, they don't know what I'm saying.
Daryl Grove with the helpful knowledge. We do appreciate it. And we do appreciate SeatGeek for providing tickets to any sort of live event, concerts, comedy shows, sporting events, theater, anything you want. You can find tickets on SeatGeek, including the Gold Cup.
Including the Gold Cup. Yeah, buying tickets to things like the Gold Cup used to be confusing, used to be annoying. With SeatGeek, it is super easy. You just tap on the app and the tickets come to you.
They do.
I invented that copy. I should sell it back to them.
Did you really?
Yeah. Tap on the app.
You're so good.
Tap on the app, get yourself some tickets.
And if you tap on the app, you can also get the kind of color-coded system that we've spoken about before, where you can also figure out if the tickets that are available are a good value or not.
Green is good, right?
Green is good. Red is the opposite of good.
Gordon Gekko said that, right?
I think that was it. That was definitely
Green is good.
It's a combination of Gordon Gekko and Gordon Geico, I think. I said that one, yeah. But yes, so you can get tickets to any of the Gold Cup matches. They are all kind of double headers. So I think like there's the one in Los Angeles is Jamaica versus Curacao, and then El Salvador versus Honduras, I think. And those are the teams. Those are going for a fairly high price, but like the U.S. doubleheader in Kansas City, tickets are available for like $40 to $50. I think you can find those on SeatGeek.
For U.S. Panama and what I assume is Trinidad Guyana.
That sounds likely. Yes.
There we go. And what if you wanted to get $10 off even that cost?
I have no idea what you can do.
No?
No.
I'll tell you then.
Oh, please.
What you can do is use the TSS promo code, which is...
of course.
It is TSS. So if you use the SeatGeek app, you use the promo code TSS, you'll get $10 off your first purchase. You can use that for Gold Cup, you can use that for concert tickets, other sports that aren't even soccer, if you want to waste your time watching those sports, comedy, music, anything else you want to watch.
Yes. But not baseball. Don't buy baseball. I'm just kidding. Baseball's fine. Soccer's better.
So remember, the promo code is TSS for $10 off your first purchase. SeatGeek supports our show, so we'll hope you support them as well.
Thank you very much to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's episode. Speaking of today, let's get to the games from today.
And today's games were England-Cameroon. England won 3-0. And France-Brazil, in which France won 2-1 in extra time. Taylor, you said at the top of the show that England-Cameroon was the most dramatic game.
It was, I think, because there were many incidents right at the end of the half, the start of the second half, even at the end of the game. And there's been much like outcry on Twitter. I think some of it justified, some of it not. And I think we're going to maybe not get into that is the best way I can explain it, because not just because we tend to not want to delve too deep into the inner workings of Twitter, but also because I think that's not really what we do. I feel like we try to kind of interpret what's happening on the field as best we can.
All right.
And I think I think we've tried to take the approach of, if you're approaching it that way, then you're not letting other stuff factor into it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I feel most comfortable. That said, I do expect maybe a mini rant or two from me.
Okay, so let's focus on the game then.
Okay.
Like I said, it finishes England 3, Cameroon 0. It starts with a goal from Steph Houghton in the 14th minute after a back pass. And I think this is it's Njangu, I believe is how you pronounce it. The ball is squared. She touches it back and Go, the keeper, picks it up. Njangu doesn't think this is a back pass, and she protests a lot.
She does, for a good long while. I mean, I forget when the back pass actually occurs, but it takes a long time for Cameroon to stop the protestations, especially, I apologize, Njangue. She really doesn't stop, continues, has to be pulled away from the referee twice. Then there's the kind of setting up of the wall, the referee making sure that the maximum distance possible is possible.
And it's tough, right? Because this is, on the 6-yard line or so, and you're supposed to be 10 yards away from the ball, or to the end of the field, right? Yes. So that basically means all the Cameroonian players have to be basically on their own goal line, including the keeper, who I think maybe it's smart. She tries to just be a step ahead of everybody so she can be in front of her defenders, but the ref pulls her back.
Yeah, the ref does, and I understand why the keeper's doing that, because number one, it's a free kick from 6 yards out, so you're going to be a little bit up for it.
It's so hard to defend.
But I think if you're the goalkeeper, you're also not used to having to worry about the distance from a free kick, aside from when a penalty is being taken, in which case stay on your line. But here, so I think I say that just to say that I understand why she has to be pushed back twice by the ref, because that you're trying to police the area, but maybe also there's an element of she feels maybe slightly guilty, because I do think, I don't know if it was necessarily an intentional pass back. I think it was a miscontrol.
Yeah, I think she was just taking a touch to try and stop it. I can't remember who the striker is who's behind her, but she's just taking a touch to stop it going.
Tony Duggan.
It's Duggan, yeah. So maybe, and I actually can see Njangu's argument is, it's not a deliberate back pass to my keeper, it's me cutting off a ball to Duggan, and I got a touch, and then my keeper picked it up. I can see how you could construct that argument, but I still think Ngo should have just realised there's a 50-50 chance this is given as an indirect free kick. I should just kick this away.
Yeah,
Don't pick it up.
I mean, I can see how you can construct that argument, but I can see it more so when you're the one who's committed the infraction. Then you're going to be like, no, it wasn't this. But we've played those games. You'll have moments where somebody will mishit a clearance and it will go backwards, and the other team will yell for pass back. And even then, it sort of is it was kind of,
it's kind of hard, right?
It is, and so I think here that's always going to be given, because it's such an obvious moment of, if that ball isn't picked up, there is a moment of confusion there, because maybe Tony Duggan gets a foot through, maybe she pokes it into the goal. So it does feel in the end like it was a preventative measure to stop an England attack.
Yeah.
And when you're doing that, then it becomes a little bit illegal, because you're picking up a ball after your defender sort of has left it in no man's land.
Is there a chance that this kind of sets the tone for the game?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, because it is Njangue who then, later on in the half, later on in the game, seems to be very emotionally affected by some of the decisions from the referee.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if maybe it starts here with this feeling of I didn't do this and I'm being accused of a thing.
She
and
feels an injustice, basically.
Yeah, I think so. And if you feel like there's been an injustice, I'm not even whether or not I agree, but if she feels like that wasn't the correct call, and now suddenly your team is 1-0 down because of a mistake that now you're being blamed for, I think it then starts to kind of weigh on you.
And you know what? This only just clicked in my head. We've had these games where if the ref does something and calls against you, you just think at the start of the game, the ref's against me. And you kind of get in that mindset, and that's what you think for the rest of the game.
Yes.
And then every call that goes against you feels like a bigger injustice.
Yes. And this is where, maybe this is mini rant number one that might turn into moderate rant. But I think some of the decisions that people have been upset about, we're going to get into, but I think if you're going to go with what VAR, the way VAR has been enforced, I think these decisions are mostly all correct.
Yeah.
I think, though, the problem here is the center official, because I think she does not do a good enough job. Basically applying structure to this game. I think the best way I can explain this is 2 weeks ago I was playing an indoor game. Our indoor team can be feisty at times. And
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, one guy on our team got into it with another guy on the other team. They're going back and forth. And neither one necessarily did enough to get, I think they both didn't even get carded. Neither one did enough, but it was very clear that things had boiled over. The referee didn't want to give a card, so he just said, look, both of you step off. Indoor has rolling subs. Step off for a minute, get a breather, come back on.
Yeah.
And they both refused. And the referee was like, no, you got to go. And they're like, no, we're not leaving. And he was like, okay, play resumes.
And that ref can't enforce substitutions, right?
He can't.
Yeah.
But at that point, now the referee has sort of been like, you guys got to step off. No.
So I get that, but what does that have to do with England-Cameroon?
Because once that starts happening, once there are moments of the referee not taking control, and I genuinely...
But she gave this call, right? She took control.
But what I'm saying is, like even with some of the protestations with some of like after the second goal for England, when there's like she's trying to get the play going and the Cameroon players are like, no, go away.
Oh, we're talking bigger issue, not just this
not just this. Yeah, sorry, I'm making it bigger already. But like basically, I think she doesn't do a good enough job asserting her authority. And then that allows things to start slipping. And then it does feel, if you feel like the aggrieved party, and then suddenly it's like, wait, hold on, why is this being called? And why isn't she talking to us? And why isn't this being communicated? And there are moments when Cameroon get, I think, very angry, and she walks away. She doesn't put a stop to it.
So you're talking about like the end of the first half after the Ellen White goal is ruled onside, and then there's a long time before Cameroon kick off. Yeah. And I think, doesn't she come over and tap
twice?
Number 7, the captain,
Angene,
taps her on the shoulder to be like, hey, come on, let's go. And Angene kind of like shrugs her off. Right?
Yeah, and
so is that the type of thing you're talking about, ref losing control?
Yeah, and so it seems like, as strange as, like, the best way I can explain it is just that, like, teams still, like, you have to be able, if you're the referee, to say, no, both of you get off or I'm giving you cards in that indoor moment. Because if you don't do that, it devolves, and it ended up in almost a fist fight, because then the authority kind of isn't there.
Game, not the Cameroon game.
And it feels like, well, that wasn't called. Maybe we can get away with this. Well, that wasn't called. Well, why wasn't this called? Well, now you're against us. Well, now you're for them. And then it builds and builds, and I think that's what happened here.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me as the narrative of the game.
All right.
But let's get back to the goal.
Let's do it.
Because the indirect free kick is given. Cameroon put everybody on the line, except they kind of overload on the right side, the near post side, and I would say underload. That's not a word, is it? But they don't put as many people.
They do not
at the far post, and that's where I think doesn't Duggan just roll it and Steph Houghton hits it inside the far post.
Right. Yeah. And it is inside the far post. It does take. I think it's weird to say a deflection off the goalkeeper's hand, but that's pretty much what this is. And I think it is Angene who is sort of covering the far post, but is tucked inside just a little bit. And I think would have been there to maybe chest it and then clear. But because it takes that little deflection, it then goes to Ongene's left, but between Ongene and the post and into the goal.
It's really unfortunate, right? Because if a keeper hadn't touched it, she probably would have just taken it on the thigh or cleared it in some way. So it's 1-0 England after 14 minutes.
Yep.
And then, as you said, the big incident is it's Ellen White's goal in the 45th plus 4th minute.
You got it.
49th minute of the first half, put it that way, because it's in added time.
It is.
Oh, so before we get into it's not really a controversy, right? Because it's onside. This is all about Lucy Bronze.
Tell that to Cameroon, but
right,
sure.
Yeah. This is all about Lucy Bronze to me. So the ball is spread out wide to Lucy Bronze. She plays down the line to I think, Duggan, who's on the right, maybe switch with Paris for a bit. Gets it back, swings across into White. The cross is headed away. But what I'm really impressed with Lucy Bronze is she then follows up and regains possession. She's the first player on the field to know where this ball's coming back to, regains it immediately, and drives at the heart of the Cameroon defence. And that's kind of the killer blow here, right? That she just recollects the ball and drives straight at them.
Yes, because I think it's also like England like trying to move the ball around, spreading it wide, dropping it back. This is like a direct run into kind of the heart of the Cameroonian defense, and that's where two of the midfielders collapsed, but the most important one is Awona, the center back, also steps out to try to sort of deal with Lucy Bronze, because it does feel like suddenly she's starting to dribble sort of towards goal, towards the middle of the field. Yeah. And so I think because Awona tries to make a play, because everybody kind of collapses on Lucy Bronze, she has that lovely little like outside of the foot lift almost pass through that finds Ellen White. Ellen White takes a touch, takes a second touch to finish.
But here's the big thing. Ellen White's unmarked because Awona has stepped out to try and deal with Lucy Bronze. I feel like she should have deferred responsibility to the midfielders to take care of it and not left Ellen White unmarked.
Yes.
Fair?
Yes, and this is where it's sort of, this game made me start to cringe and like root, like, please don't let this happen. Like when Cameroon's goal gets disallowed, that happened. And here, when I watched this, I was like, wait, why is Ellen White on? And then I realized it's going to be a Jange, isn't it? And it was. A Jange fails to step out. That's why Ellen White is left in an onside position.
Yeah, and she's like pretty clearly onside, right, on the replay.
But if you already feel hard done by, and now you feel like, oh, it's me again, of course. And then also, I think we had a question about like if the Cameroonian players were able to see, or any of the players when VAR is happening, if they were able to see the replays themselves, would it help?
Yeah.
And I get why that makes sense, but I really don't think it would. And
I think though, if Jange could see, oh, I was behind Ellen White, I was keeping her on side, it's kind of hard to argue after that, right? If you have the visual evidence.
See, I guess like she might be the outlier here, because I do also think that we've seen in this game and in other games this tournament, once it's been explained by the official, and again, this is where I think the authority of the official to like quickly and precisely convey what's happening is so important, because we've seen other teams think it's a bad call, the VAR is explained, and it's like, okay, and then they go on with it. And here I think because there wasn't enough explanation, it was just sort of like, oh yeah, it happened, it's a goal, whatever. Like I think that's where more of the sort of what's happening, this doesn't feel like things are going our way, and it feels like it's a little bit intentional, starts to again bubble up.
And it doesn't help that it's a crushing goal, right? Because the difference between 1-0 and 2-0 is like it's a much, much, much bigger sort of hill you got to climb to get back level, right?
Yeah, and this is also where things take a turn for the surreal. Because then there's still time left. They're going to take a kickoff, except Cameroon huddle up in the center.
That's what you were talking about, where the ref sort of is encouraging them to like hurry up and kick off, but they like Angene is basically not listening to the ref.
And this is, it feels similar to like the indoor anecdote, going back to that one, where it's a sort of like she can't. There's nothing she can do. Like, all she can do is start handing out cards, and she clearly doesn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So
is that what she should have done? I felt like in the moment it would have felt like she could make things even worse.
Yeah, and
we should have to choose between the lesser of two annoyances, right?
Yeah, I feel bad here because we haven't. I mean, I don't feel that bad because we haven't mentioned her name, but we've been criticizing her. But it's Qin Liang, I think it is, for
the referee?
She's a Chinese referee, and. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because then you're suddenly handing out a bunch of yellow cards. Who do you hand it out to? Do you hand it to the whole team, to the captain?
Yeah.
And it just sort of feels like things are at an impasse and she can't really do anything. But that's not a very great look when you're trying to, again, kind of keep the game rolling, keeping things orderly.
Yep.
Or not even orderly, but just moving in a logical direction of take the kickoff and then we'll get in for halftime.
Okay. And then in the second half, it gets more dramatic.
It does.
Number 3, Shu, scores. The pass comes from Angene. Angene was offside.
She was.
It was. I can't remember who the striker was, but they put good pressure on Bardsley, the England keeper, forced her into a bum clearance. Basically, it was not a good clearance. So that clearance is played immediately back down the line, and Angene, as we learn on the replay, is offside by literally the width of a foot, right? It's like her cleat is her entire foot is the only thing that makes her offside. But she is offside when she receives this pass. It's a great square ball to shoot. It's a great finish by Shoot.
Yeah.
But Angene was offside.
This is where I feel like the Twitter commentary of like if you like VAR, you're a cop comes into the equation, because it is sort of like I understand that it feels terrible. It feels like, and I understand also because this was the first time I think in this tournament that VAR has really bothered me, because it did feel like you saw Shu after that one. She's very calm. She gets everybody back. You can tell that I don't speak French, but you can tell that she's saying like, "This is us. We got this now. We got to fight. We can make something happen."
Definitely a let's go. We're back.
It's 2-1. We're right back in this to start the second half.
And there's an element of her saying, "Be calm, focus." I think in what the body language that she's giving to her teammates is "Be calm, focus."
And then it's called back for offside. And I think that it's so close. It is technically correct. It's how they've called VAR. Look, if you want to debate whether or not that's frustrating, I will be on the side of yes, it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
Should it be the rule? I don't really know, because it is the rule. And so she is offside, but I get why in that moment it felt like, oh, we've got a game. No, we don't. The momentum is crushed.
Yeah.
And I think that then further explains the frustration that you see after this goal.
So this isn't a conversation where we have to be pro or anti-VAR, right? I feel like VAR just is. It exists. It is being used in this tournament. And if you are even like the width of a foot offside, it's going to be spotted by VAR and the goal's going to get called back.
Yeah, and this is where I really enjoyed Kim McCauley's take on this game on Twitter, where she points out that basically the 3 calls are correct. You might not like it, but they're correct. But it still speaks to a larger issue of VAR being implemented just before this tournament starts.
That's the big issue, right?
And it's not. And then there are all the responses like, no, it was implemented in the World Cup last year. Fine. But there have been nuances and wrinkles and changes to the way it's being enforced.
It's not just the VAR, it's the new laws, right?
Exactly.
Essentially the new laws. That's the argument with the penalty kick, people coming off the line, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, it shouldn't have been introduced right before the tournament.
Right. And so that is a separate issue. Again, I would probably err on the side, or I would agree with that, like, yes, this has not been implemented properly. There were other times there could have been more time to get used to it, but it is the system we have. And so I think maybe that is then, I'm coming around on this, maybe that is the idea of like maybe you need a 5th official to explain what's happening with the review to the team who's the aggrieved party, so that then they can be like, oh, okay, that helps us understand what's going on a bit more.
I think if there was a way to do it, I think to prove to the players, hey, this is what happened. Like maybe that would calm things down. Because I saw an interview with Shu afterwards. It was in French, but closed captions translated. And she says, I don't know why that goal was called back.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she's just still protesting or if she like maybe no one told her, hey, it was because Ongeni was offside. Because maybe she's thinking, oh, did I do something wrong? I wasn't offside. I didn't foul anyone in the build-up. I placed my shot perfectly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But it seems to me her teammates must have explained it to her at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I would...
You would guess, right?
I would guess. I mean, she might just be speaking to the general frustration and confusion of VAR.
Yeah.
This is semi-rant number 2. You can be quiet if you want, because this could get kind of awkward.
Should I sit back?
But I also do think that, like, I'll be honest and say that I'm going to guess you probably felt slightly uncomfortable saying what you just said there, because I also think there's been a little bit of... Not even a little bit. There's been a lot of the stereotypes, especially about African teams, brought out. And I think with this game, there were some of like, oh, Cameroon don't even know the rules. They don't even know how to play this.
You mean on the commentary?
Yeah. And so I think, or even, yes, and then the general coverage I've seen, some of the English media in response to the way this game finished. And I think that there's an element there.
Phil Neville's comments after the game were not helpful.
Yeah. And so I think then it becomes like, oh, Cameroon don't even know how this is. And it becomes this sort of like, oh, fast and physical, but don't know the rules. And that is when I think that kind of bleeds into some of the reaction I feel like people have had on social media and in response to this game. So I just say it to say that, like, that is Shu's own words, is I don't understand why this wasn't called back. And again, I think it speaks to a lack of communication from the official.
And I honestly don't know how literally to take that.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's just expressing frustration or if she's saying, like, no one told me that Ongeni was offside.
Yeah. But commentators do some research, and that's what I have to say about that one.
What do you think of what happened? So her emotional reaction after this goal is ruled out. What was she just protesting? Was she saying, I want to leave the field? What was going on?
I think it was that. And I think for a moment I thought she was the one who was going to be subbed out, because there is a change immediately after that. Ngaramwi, I think, is subbed off. On comes Takunda.
But Ngaramwi famously has like multiple ACL surgeries and can't go for that long. And,
But when I saw that change happening immediately after this, I thought, ooh, okay, they're taking off Chu because she is sort of at the point where she can no longer function within the team right now. But I think...
I saw the coach give her a hug. I also saw Ongeni, who's the captain, do the captain's job and like hold her tight and basically calm it down.
Alain Jumfa is the coach for Cameroon, and he held her. And again, that felt sort of strange in the moment of like, what's happening? He seems to be restraining her.
Yeah,
this is
because
strange.
He's so big and she's so small as well. It was like a big bear hug.
But he himself, I think there were reports that is definitely part of it. But there were reports that like there were allegations of racism at halftime, that there were protests from Cameroon at halftime, that they came back onto the field very quickly in order to have further conversations with the officials, or maybe with the fourth official. So I think that was also the moment in this game where I thought like they legitimately, I know a lot of people tweeted this, but like I thought they legitimately may walk off the field right now, and that may just be the end of it. And when it became clear that goal was coming back, again I was like, oh no, this is not going to be good. This is going to make things much, much worse.
Well, in terms of the scoreline, things did get worse because England scored a third. It was a very smart corner kick from England.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a low... Is it Duggan again?
It is.
Low driven ball in, and it's... I've forgotten her first name.
I think Alex Greenwood.
Alex Greenwood does this run from the... She's at the very far post, and she does... It's essentially, it's not a full circle, but it's more than a semicircle.
It is.
Of a run around, like through the top of the penalty area and back to the middle to meet the ball from Duggan, and one-time finish.
And it's the sort of like the ruthlessness of design set pieces that when you're Greenwood, if you know how to make that like full sprint arc around the kind of traffic in the middle, it favors you, because if you know exactly where that ball is going to be or roughly where that ball is going to be hit and you know how to make that run, you're at full speed, whereas the defender is trying to get through a bunch of other players to track the mark who is at full speed.
Yep. That's why Greenwood gets that goal.
But it's a great finish as well. It's clearly designed, clearly something they've done multiple times, but that doesn't take away from how good the finish was. I
don't know if we mentioned this, but Lucy Bronze is also involved. She does some blocking at the far post. So if any Cameroonian players were going to sort of try and run with Greenwood, Bronze blocks them off. I mean, there's maybe an argument for VAR for Bronze blocking.
I think it's
this isn't the NFL. You can't do that.
It's not, but it's like just enough that like I think the argument could be made like, oh, she's trying to make a play. She's maybe going in the direction of the ball. But it's not like as though she like steps in front and blocks her off or anything like that.
That's true.
It's just enough to like make her adjust her run a little bit.
No face guarding. Anything else to say on this game? Because I know there's a lot going on with this game.
Yes. Because I also do think that, and again, I'm stealing a point from Kim McCauley, but she also made the point that there could have been 3 red cards to Cameroon in this game. I do believe that.
There was the foul on Nikita Paris in the first few minutes.
There's the elbow from Leuko, who, if you go back and watch, I think she knows exactly what she's doing. She throws an elbow as Paris is trying to get by.
She gets a yellow, right?
She gets a yellow, and that, again, could have been a moment where the authority is stamped, and it wasn't. I think Ejange... it's debatable whether or not it's intentional, but spits on Tony Duggan after the back pass happens.
Yeah, I honestly think there's no way of knowing.
I don't either, but it's still it's a questionable moment where she knows Tony Duggan is right in front of her, and that's when she chooses to spit.
Yeah.
So there's that one. And then at the very end, you have Takunda coming across, very bad tackle on Houghton, and this is one where I think you made the point that it's reckless, but it's not necessarily dangerous.
Yeah.
So maybe
it's a bit of a scrape down the shin.
But it was
it's not excessive force. I don't think it's an endangering opponent, but it's pretty close to it.
But it's Secunda having just been frustrated because she felt she was fouled, that her run was obstructed.
Yeah, Williamson bumped into her twice, and so we haven't seen a close up of it. But Secunda goes down as if she's maybe been elbowed, sort of in the what's that called, sternum.
Yeah,
and it may be that that Williamson kind of just through an elbow a little bit,
But then, play stops, she gets treatment. When she comes back on, the first thing she does is sprint 30 yards to put this tackle in.
Yeah,
and that
on a different player, Houghton. Yeah.
And that may be just no, I'm still going to fight. I want my teammates to know that I'm still up for this. But just the way she comes through, I think, also could have been a red.
Yeah.
The fact that then the coach who I just praised earlier, Jumfa, steps over Houghton while she's on the ground, and then who's the captain again? Ongene, thank you. She comes over and is screaming at
Houghton,
yeah, and this again is where the referee comes over and tries to talk to her, and Ongene just shakes her off, and the referee just backs up and stands there and lets her scream at the England players.
Yeah,
again, not really asserting authority. And my final thing I have to say is I have a conspiracy theory about this because I know there was some talk about why the commentators were saying it. Why wouldn't you just call this game at this point? Why would you go do VAR to see if this needs to be a red card because there is a possible red card?
The answer is because that's not how soccer works. You play until the game's over. Right?
Yes,
yeah.
But I also am wondering, the fourth official responsible for keeping that extra time was the center official for the Scotland-Argentina game, which sort of what would be the term here? Not dramatically, but not suspiciously or anything like that. But it ends with maybe there should have been more time because of VAR, and it's basically called with, I think 4 minutes were added on, but then there's a 7-minute VAR challenge, and it's called in the 95th minute. So I do wonder if maybe there was a talking to for her, the North Korean official, Okri Hang, and maybe they said okay, but in the future, make sure you play all the way through, and every minute has to be accounted for, and so that's why
you play
this keeps
all the
going.
way through every time.
Well, yeah,
that's
also
how soccer's supposed to work, right? Yeah.
Yes.
One final thought I have on this game is I think maybe Cameroon went into this thinking, all right, we're outmatched. This is a good England team. We're gonna fight.
Yeah.
We're gonna give them a battle. And I think maybe that's what boiled over. Emotions were high, and when decisions go against you, and you fight more, and you keep fighting. I think that's kind of the story of this game. That the plan was to be scrappy and to fight. I think that's evidenced by the Lyoko elbow, maybe in the early on to Paris, because that's before any other incident, right? And I think that is that was almost the driving force for Cameroon going into this game.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably a fair way to look at it. But I think, again, going back to many teams that we've played on, if suddenly things go against you very quickly, where maybe there's a yellow card that you don't think should have happened, then there's this back pass and it's a goal, that can really quickly turn into anger and frustration, which can then turn into sort of the game we saw today.
Yeah. Let's do this. Let's try and remember Cameroon for Shu's late winner with 10 seconds to go that got them to the round of 16. This game, obviously this won't be what they want to remember, but they had this great moment where they qualified from the group stage with Shu scoring the winner. That's how she'll want to remember the World Cup, right?
All right. Yeah. That works for me. One of the things...
It's probably not going to happen, but that's what I want to happen.
That's fair. But one other thing, though, I think about this game real fast, though, is that, lost in all this is that England win and go through. And I don't really know what to make of it because there were moments when they looked very sloppy and the English defense gave away the ball a lot and were not nearly as sharp as they need to be to continue to advance.
Like Bardsley's clearance that leads to the offside goal in the end. Yeah.
But I don't know if because the game had so many weird moments in it that maybe it was just sort of, it took England out of their normal rhythm. I don't really know what went on there, but it was...
It looked to me like they were trying to play too fast.
Yeah,
when they're already 2-0 up. I think if you're 2-3-0 up, you could just maintain possession and slow it down. And they never look really capable of being that slow possession team, which maybe is just not a gear that England have.
Yeah. It might be. Or maybe they just wanted to make sure everybody was ready for the next round. And so there you go. But either way, England advance.
Next round is England-Norway, which I think is going to be quite the game.
Yeah, I think so. Because... there will be question marks about England's ability to play out of the back and kind of connect those long balls out of the back. Norway, we know, will press and will block off and then challenge and fight for every ball. And it could be a very interesting game of back and forth.
Okay. Speaking of, final game of today and final game to review on today's show is France-Brazil. As I said, France won 2-1 in extra time.
Yes.
Why are you laughing?
Because I think we were like, this could probably be a short show. It's just 4 games, we'll roll through it, and here we are about to be an hour. Yes.
USA-Spain preview to come as well.
Oh, boy. All right. We can do it. What did you make of this game? Because I found it really interesting, but also at the end of it, regular time, I was sort of like, I don't know if I understand anything that's happened in this game.
It wasn't fully entertaining, right, in a weird way. I think it might be because the two teams played 4-4-2, and it felt like... I don't know, like no one ever established like numerical superiority. No one sort of overloaded one side or made things happen that way. Maybe that's the reason.
I think so.
I find it a hard game to understand.
And I feel like that was not the smartest decision from France, because I think they've looked. I mean, obviously they win, so. Yeah. Whatever. But I do think that losing Tine as a more like central, like third central midfielder, like in the kind of, if you go with the usual 4-2-3-1 of like Henry and Busalia and then Tine ahead of them, I think that gives you a lot more presence. You've got the passing triangle. Then you've got, like, say, if you wanted to go with Gianni and Eugene Le Sommer out wide, that gives you Gauvin up top. And then you've kind of got, I think, a shape that really works because you've got numbers in the middle, you've got counterattacks out wide, and you've got a very good, strong attacker up top. And it seemed like by kind of changing that shape, it gave Brazil more time on the ball. And also I felt like put France into more of 1v1 situations. What stands out to me is the first 15 minutes or so, Marta was just doing work.
She was.
And I think part of that was because she kept getting herself into isolated situations where I back Marta in one-on-ones and she backs herself as well.
Yeah.
So it seemed like...
She was a joy to watch. Right?
Yeah,
even though she lost this game, every time she was on the ball, you kind of thought, oh, anything could happen here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, and that made it very fun, but it also sort of changed the way I thought the game was going to go because it became more open at times than I expected it to be, but then also a little bit more like long balls and sort of direct plays and less like patient build-up.
But the real difference maker wasn't Marta. It was Gianni.
It was
Gianni. So number 11, she played up front, but she drifted to the right wing quite a lot. So maybe that's the one sort of overload that France would try. And I'm going to say both goals and the disallowed goal are all Gianni running down that right wing.
You are correct.
I am correct.
Yeah,
right?
You're absolutely correct. And I backed Delphine Cascarino heading into this tournament as being the kind of breakout player on that right wing for France.
She started the tournament, right?
She did.
I think as Gianni sort of... I mean, Gianni, I know she played centre forward / right wing, but she's definitely taken that spot from Cascarino, right?
And also has justified it with this game. Yes, to your point, yes, involved in all three moves.
Okay, so can we talk about the disallowed goal first?
Sure.
So this is Gianni, is I think 1v3 down in the right hand corner, manages to somehow get to the end line, put this cross in, and Gauvin collides with goalkeeper Barbara, and the ball goes in the back of the net. And then Gauvin collapses to the floor in a quite worrying moment, right? I was surprised that she was okay, right? In the end, she got up, she was fine. This got VAR'd a lot. And what the really interesting thing to me here is that I think you saw what the referee was looking for. Because you saw, she looked at the big picture VAR, but then you saw her, she got like a dial essentially to wind back and forth, right, when she goes over to the monitor. And you could see her checking, does Barbara have possession of the ball? And the answer seemed to be no. She's got two hands on it, but never fully. And then I think the second angle, which is from behind the goal, she was checking, I think, was it handball by Gauvin, or was it a head, or was it something else?
Yes. I would agree with all that. I would disagree with the way you described it as Gauvin collides with Barbara, because I would say it felt to me very much the other way around. Okay. I think Barbara comes aggressively off her line and Gauvin is making a legal play, in my opinion, which I think is also why that collision isn't called. And I also agree she doesn't have control. But I also don't agree with the official. I don't think she handballs this, or I don't think it's enough of a clear and obvious handball that this goal should have been disallowed.
All right. You're using clear and obvious because that's the language that people use for when VAR is used in the field, but that's not the law for when they do a goal check.
No, but it should be the law for when you're reversing a goal. I think it should be very obvious as to whether or not an infraction occurred, and I don't think it's very obvious.
And even you and I sat here and watched it, 20 times here in studio and didn't fully agree. Like, I still think maybe it may be a little like punch on the ball from Gauvin, or it may be the top of her shoulder. I honestly can't tell because and we're seeing what the ref's seeing, right? And it's a little bit blurry. It's not perfectly defined, and our TV feed is good, and her TV feed is good. But at some point, you can't quite get enough detail to tell, is that the hand or is that the shoulder?
Yeah, and we've had moments where like we've freeze framed and gone through like frame by frame to see what happened, and it is the case that you can freeze a sequence like at one moment, and it looks like, oh, that was definitely a handball, and then you do it like three more like frames, and it's like, oh no, wait, no, that definitely wasn't, and that's also part of it. Is like, what specifically are you looking at and when? Because I take your point. There were moments when I was like, oh, maybe she does handball it, but then we would watch it again and I'd say like, oh, but no, I think it's her shoulder. You can see the jersey move a little bit. And so what it says to me is that if the goal is scored in the like run of play and it's not necessarily like clear what happened in there, I don't understand why it then gets reversed.
You think when they VAR every goal, right, to check for any incident. So you think if there's not like, if there's a thing where the referee has to see it 1,000 times and isn't even fully convinced it's a handball, maybe she shouldn't overrule it.
Yes.
Because there's not enough evidence. It's almost like in a court of law, right? It's got to be, what's the phrase?
Beyond a reasonable doubt?
Yes, it's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah. Should we leave that pause in or edit it out?
We can tighten it up.
The pause was real.
All right.
But yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt would be a good sort of bar for you to have to.
Yes. So I think this is strangely.
We could have done with your wife here.
Maybe I've said this 3 times. We could have. She was here earlier. Maybe I could have. I feel like maybe I've said this a couple times, but I think this is the first time that I've been like, ooh, VAR. I do not agree with that choice.
Yeah.
But. Doesn't really matter. Game continues. France eventually...
We're still 0-0 here, right?
We are. France eventually do get the go-ahead goal, and it is Gauvin this time.
And it's Gianni again. So I can't remember who plays it to her, but she receives this ball down the right, and does she do like a...
It doesn't matter who plays it to her, because it's all Gianni.
It is, right? It's like she receives with her back to it and almost receives and spins at the same time, and then off she goes down the line. It is a wonderful bit of play.
Yes, it is, because she then is able to also like turn the corner at a very tight angle that it goes from like, oh, she's going to get to the end line and cross to, if you're a Brazilian defender, oh, she might dribble in and take a shot on goal. So I think then you have kind of everybody taking their eye off runners into the box and focusing more so on Gianni. And I think that's why, at least partially why Gauvin is able to be wide open. But I think it's also that maybe she slips a little bit, and that's weirdly fortuitous.
Yeah, how do you explain this?
So she's making...
This is as Gianni is about to play the ball in, right?
Yes. Yeah. Gauvin is making a near post run and loses her footing a little bit. I think it's her left foot like slides out in front, and she corrects. And it's a credit to her that not only does she correct, but she's immediately alive to how the play is developed, and instead makes a back post run. Her mark had moved to cut out the near post ball. Back post is still open, and then Gauvin does a very good job getting... It's one of those goals where it's just get any body part to it, and she's able to get some part of her leg
at it.
Yeah.
So she took her leg off and threw it at it.
Exactly. But that's all that matters, because it puts it in the side netting.
Maybe it was all a big fake. Maybe the falling over was just all part of Gauvin's plan.
Exactly. It's all part of the plan. All part of the plan.
I didn't realise this, but Brazil equalised just 11 minutes later. In the 63rd minute, it's Taissa has the ball in the back of the net.
Or does she?
This is another one that is pulled back for VAR to check. What is it? To check whether Debinha is offside or not? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Debinha goes down the left, puts a nice cross in. Mm-hmm. Is it Wendy Renard gets a sort of half clearance to it?
She's basically trying to cut it out for the ball at the near post, gets an instep to it, but cuts it right back to Taissa, who's then able to finish unmarked basically from 12 yards out.
Did this goal feel to you like it just came against expectations?
Yes.
Yeah. It really felt like after France had scored, France is going to roll.
It did.
Yeah.
It did feel that way. And I'll say it did feel sort of, as the game went on, felt more and more like France was going to find a way to win. I thought they would find a way in regular time. And then I definitely thought they'd find a way in extra time, because it did feel like Brazil started to do like a bit more fouling and to look a little bit more stretched.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, it felt like France were really starting to, I think, sense that there was an opportunity and really going for it. And I would say my best example of that is that they score a goal 1 minute into the second part of extra time. It feels like maybe they really seized on their moment.
Before we get to that goal, I do just want to stay on this Taissa goal for a second.
Sure.
Because this is going to be controversial, so it's my turn to rant now. Prepare yourself. This is an example of the late flag for offside being a good thing.
That's right.
People hate it because it lets a play develop that is going to come to nothing because it's going to be offside. But the reason they do it is in case the assistant referee has made a mistake, right? So the assistant referee believes that Debinha is offside when she receives the ball down the left, doesn't put her flag up until after the ball is in the back of the net. Then she signals offside, but then it gets checked and we find that the AR was incorrect.
Right.
So this is an example of, if we'd gone with the old rules, that assistant referee would have raised her flag immediately on Debinha, and this play would have been called dead before the ball even got crossed into the box, right? So Taissa would not have got this goal.
Right. But then also, aren't there the sequences where you're supposed to just let it happen if it's a marginal offside and then let VAR call it back afterwards if the player was indeed offside?
Yeah.
So I guess I just feel like, but I'm still sort of confused about when the AR is supposed to put the flag in the air and when they're not.
Just right at the end of the play. So they're supposed to put their flag in the air after the whole play has happened. You know what I'm saying? So that there's nothing big.
But if every goal is going to be VAR'd, then why put the flag in the air? Because if it's already happened and it's already going to be taken a look at,
that you think it's offside. You're still part of the refereeing crew.
Yeah, I guess so.
But you just want to do away with ARs and just have it all done by VAR.
No, I mean, like, think about what I'm saying here for a moment. If it's going to be VAR'd no matter what, because it's a goal, then putting your flag in the air, like, it's telling them, go look at the thing you're already going to look at. Like, that's where I get confused. Is like,
I guess they're just signaling
then?
What they think happened. They're saying, I think it's offside, right?
Yeah.
And then they can take that into account or not.
Yeah.
And they can prove you wrong with video.
The computer doesn't care about your flag. That's all I have to say.
The computer doesn't care about your feelings.
It does not. It does not.
Well, Marjorie doesn't care about your feelings
She does not.
because she crosses a mean ball. In the 106th minute, France get their winner. It's Gianni again, intercepts a Brazilian pass, dribbles down the wing. This time she gets fouled, right?
She gets pulled back. Yep.
She gets pulled back because, I mean, if I was Brazil, I'd be pulling her back. I'd be terrified of Gianni running at me.
I think it was Andre Senia who subbed on, was a relatively fresh set of legs, but still has to pull Gianni back because Gianni gets some space.
There's no legs fresh enough to stop her.
Nah.
And Marjorie sends in this cross from the free kick. Sorry, not Marjorie. I
was wondering.
Yeah. I just mispronounced. And Amandine Henry, French captain, is on the end of it.
Yes. And it's a great finish from Amandine Henry, sliding in step. She's definitely aiming for where she puts the ball. It's not just getting a foot on the end of it. I think she's definitely making a play.
The opposite of Gauvin, right?
And it's especially impressive because I think Monica is at this point realizing, oh no, I'm beaten and this is not good.
Does Monica make a quick attempt to grab her? And does she give up or does she just not get there?
I think she lets go. I think she tries to do the I'm going to tug the jersey to put you off a little bit, but not enough that maybe it's definitely going to be a penalty.
I see. She just wants a bit of distraction.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I also think we've had moments to criticize Monica in this tournament. I would say this is not one of them because I think
I did it on first watch. I texted you because we didn't watch this game together. We watched it separately. I texted, "Oh, Monica."
Yep. And I responded, think it's Beatrice. And it is. Because Beatrice, the forward for Brazil, she just breaks the offside line. She drops maybe a yard or two too early. Yeah. She's tracking Les Sommer, who, I mean, yes, is an incredibly good goal scorer, but I don't think of as being a particularly threatening aerial attacker.
Right.
So I'm not sure if maybe that's just the moment getting to Beatrice, but yeah, she breaks the line. So then Henry is not only onside, but also onside and goal side, and able to just kind of beat Monica there.
And Monica has held the offside line, and that's why Henry's the other side of it, right? So it actually isn't Monica's fault.
It is not. It is not. But a game that seemed like maybe it was going to go to penalties, even though I did not think it would, ends with France getting the win and advancing to the next round, where they will likely, maybe possibly, meet the United States if they're able to get past Spain.
Or Spain, yeah. So France will play the US or Spain in the sort of, it's almost like the prophesized quarterfinal.
It is. It is.
Before we preview that, today's show.
It's weird. I feel like it doesn't ever really happen in tournaments that it all ends up going the way it went with the two favorites that they play when they're supposed to.
Let's not jinx it just yet because the US still has to play Spain.
That's
remember?
fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Okay, today's show is sponsored by our friends at FBref.com, the football reference site, the sports reference site. At FBref.com, they have a Women's World Cup entire stats page where you can dig into all kinds of World Cup stats.
Arby's has the meats, they have the stats.
I've got stats to share with you. Have you got stats to share with me?
I do.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
So I took a look at not just top scorers, but top scorers still in the tournament. So right now, Alex Morgan is the top scorer in this tournament with 5 goals. Sam Kerr is level with her with 5 goals.
I think Sam Kerr probably won't score any more goals this tournament.
She will not.
I think.
Morgan also has 3 assists, right? So if things ended as they were right now, I believe Morgan would get the golden boot because assists is the tiebreaker, right? Sam Kerr can't catch her. Christiane has 4. She is now out. Christiane can't catch her. Ellen White has 4 goals.
Get out of here, Ellen White.
England. Ellen White with the famous Anthony Modeste
the bespectacled
celebration. Ellen White has 4 goals and is still alive in this tournament. After that, it's Wendy Renard, Sarah de Bruyne, Christiana Girelli, and Carly Lloyd, all on 3 goals. That's who's chasing Alex Morgan.
All right. Yeah. Well, speaking of some French players there, I looked at minutes played in the tournament so far, and I noticed there are 4 French players who have played every minute of every game in this tournament so far. Can you guess who they are?
Wendy Renard?
Yes.
The goalkeeper whose name is escaping me right now?
Buhari.
That's what I was going to say.
Yep. If Wendy Renard has played every game, then who else has probably played every game?
Mbak?
Yep.
Okay.
And that leaves one more.
Ooh, did Amandine Henry play every game?
She played every single game.
Yes.
You are correct.
What do I win?
Just my respect. And also,
I'll take it. I didn't know I had it.
Maybe you don't. I don't know. Now that you say that you wanted it, I'm not sure. I'm not sure you can have it anymore.
I see.
And for the United States, there's only one player who's played every minute so far. That would be Alyssa Nair.
Of course it is.
Can you guess the player who's come the closest to that?
Dalkamper?
You are correct. Well done, my friend. 262.
I've been watching all the games. I'm paying
270
attention.
possible minutes.
So go to fbref.com.
Hey, quizzes on the fly. can be challenging.
It depends who you are. FBref.com is where you can get all your stats. There's also the great Stats Head newsletter. You can subscribe to the newsletter if you click on the link in the navbar.
There we are. So thank you very much to FBref for sponsoring today's episode.
Yeah.
One more thing to do, Mr. Grove, and that's preview the USA's game with Spain.
So I was talking all arrogant just about how I can answer questions. Should the US be arrogant and confident going into this game against Spain?
Confident is one thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Arrogant is another. No, they should be arrogant.
Okay, let's just be confident then.
Yeah, 100%. And they should, because
why
they've justified it so far. I
think that's right.
There were... If you want to nitpick a performance and say, like, oh, well, this pass didn't happen, or the United States looked slow here, or they could have done this against Sweden, that's fine. You can do that. But I
people nitpicking the 2-0 win over Sweden?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was definitely some moments where the United States had some counterattacks or allowed some counterattacks for Sweden, or was a little sloppy in possession, or a few passes didn't come off. And I think because it was the first test, I think nerves were high. And so I think...
For fans, not for players, though.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I think the U.S. has justified it. I think they've looked sharp. I thought maybe they might have some difficulty scoring in the first game because Thailand were going to be compact. That was not the case. I thought they would maybe have some difficulty getting goals against Chile. They did it, and then they kind of backed off, I think, a little bit because they were, I think, resting. They then, because they kind of changed up the lineup for Chile, they rested players. Now they're fully fit against Sweden. But if Sweden rested players, but I think the United States have kind of backed themselves and justified the hype every single time so far.
So what are we up against in Spain? You and I, we've watched every Spain game so far, the 3 group stage games. What I didn't remember until going back and looking at the stats is that they haven't scored in their last 2 games.
They have not.
All
I didn't
their
remember
goals,
that either. Yeah.
All their goals came in the 3-1 win over South Africa. 2 of those were penalty kicks, and one of those was when South Africa were down to 10 players and the left back played everybody like 20 yards onside.
And after the second penalty had happened, I think there was very little time left. So I think it's also South Africa pushing forward to try to find a late equalizer because why not?
Right. And so then in the game against Germany, they lost 1-0. Against China, they tied 0-0. And I think the problem we've seen with Spain is they are not particularly decisive when they get into the box.
Yes, I would say, and if you want to take that one step further, I would say they're a little overly elaborate at times. That it feels like they're trying to find the very clear shooting opportunity rather than kind of taking the shooting opportunity from a decent distance. Because as I said in the ad break last week for FBref, that they tend to take a lot of shots from distance, from outside the box, but not getting a lot on target, to me suggests that maybe they're not getting themselves into good shooting positions and are instead waiting, and then it doesn't quite come off.
So my image of Spain is Jennifer Hermoso or either of the 2 Garcias getting into the box and then taking, almost like they're back to a defender and they're taking loads of touches and almost playing some futsal, rolling their foot on top of the ball, but never quite creating a real, clear scoring chance, right? And I almost think, Jennifer Hermoso is absolutely their star player, right? She has a certain style of play, which is a lot of touches, and she's very hard to dispossess. But I think almost that seems to have spread around the team. That's become the team style, this possession. It's almost like Arsene Wenger's Arsenal when they're at their worst in terms of trying to score the perfect goal.
Yes. Yeah.
Without the cutting edge.
And I think one way, as Troy Deeney taught us, to beat Arsenal is to go at them and make them kind of get nervous and maybe knock them around a little bit. And I do think that's kind of what the United States should do.
Knock them around a little bit? All right.
I think the United States should be aggressive from the first whistle. I think that if they go at Spain, as we talked about, Spain take a few extra touches, even not necessarily just in around the defender's box, but further back on the field. And I think the United States can put Spain under pressure early and often, and I think that will lead to either some long balls that the U.S. can easily collect or some turnovers that the United States can capitalize upon.
So there is an argument that if Spain are so toothless, they love possession, but they're kind of toothless. There's an argument that the US should sit a little deep, let them come in, and then hit them on the counter. And I could see making the case for that game plan. I cannot see the US taking a non-proactive game plan.
I agree.
Just because of the attitude and the swagger that these players have had over the first few games. There's no way it's not just, we're going to press you high, we're going to win the ball off you, we're going to possess. We're not even going to let you have the ball.
Yeah, because the only argument I could make, you're not allowed to interject because you're going to then be like, well, this is obvious, but I want to say the obvious part. The only thing I could say is that maybe you do that, you sit off a little bit because against maybe France, you're not going to be able to be as aggressive and all over them. You are going to have to sit back a little bit more, so maybe you want a little bit of preparation, but then you are literally looking past Spain to your next opponent, which is not a thing we want to see done.
Was that the obvious part that you didn't want to do? How about lineups then? So Julia Ertz was apparently not...
I think the United States should play 11 players for sure.
Well,
for sure.
You know the obvious question I'm going to ask you, right?
Yeah.
So in the previous game against Sweden, Julia Ertz wasn't fully fit, and so Sam Muir steps in. Lindsey Horan goes to that central defensive midfielder spot. There's definitely basically 12 players who deserve to start for the US.
Yeah.
and there's only 11 spots. So who loses out? Is it Sauerbrunn, Dahlkamper, Hertz, Mewis, Haran, Lavelle?
Let me think here for a moment, because I think that what the United States
There's no correct answer, by the way.
But I think what the United States has done so far in this tournament is rest players without saying we're resting them. So I think Sauerbrunn, we talked about this in the game against Thailand. I think they thought, we probably don't need to play a 70% Becky Sauerbrunn. We'll wait till she's fully fit, but we don't want to say we're resting players in case this doesn't go well. I think they probably did that against Sweden as well. They didn't want to say we're resting Julie Ertz, so it was instead she picked up a minor knock. She looked just fine in warm-ups.
Do you think the injuries are just hey, a bit of rotation?
I think it's a little bit of rotation, a little bit of preventative steps, but then it's also not wanting to say, we rested Julie Ertz against Sweden in case that backfires. So
gotcha.
I think, and Jill Ellis has said, I think when asked about it, she said Alex is fine, Julie is fine.
Oh, because Alex Morgan came off at half-time, right, in that Sweden game?
Yes, so it does, I guess, come down to who's in that midfield. I mean, maybe it's Sauerbrunn sits and Julie Ertz starts there. There's a lot of maybes, but I have a feeling Jill Ellis will go back to her Lindsey Horan, Julie Ertz, Rose Lavelle midfield.
Yeah.
I think that's a shame because Sam Mewis was so good against Sweden and had the kind of passing eye and was able to find those chances and find those opportunities. But maybe that's where you bring her on if Spain are a little bit more tired and if you want to try to kind of exploit that as a result.
I constantly forget this with the starting 11 conversation is that you get to make subs.
Yep.
Right? You're not saying Sam Mewis is excluded from this game. She doesn't start this game. She can come on at halftime. She can come on in the 60th minute and have a massive impact on this game. Just because you don't start doesn't mean you're not going to make an impact in the game.
This is true.
Yeah.
I will expect the kind of standard front three we've seen of Heath, Morgan, and Rapinoe.
Yep.
I didn't think Megan Rapinoe had her best game against Sweden. I felt like her delivery wasn't as sharp as we've seen. I think she also struggled to get into the game at times or stay in the game at times.
Counterpoint doesn't matter because she's Megan Rapinoe and she's going to be showing up for the big round of 16 game.
And that was my point. See, this is why I tell you not to interject so you know these things. Yeah, because I was going to say, I'm expecting a big response from her, and that's what I want to see is sort of Megan Rapinoe reminding everybody that she's Megan Rapinoe, a la Keith Hernandez.
On the other side, I thought Tobin Heath was quite effective against Sweden. She was often outnumbered, sort of like Gianni. She was a lot of times 1v3, and she still found room to get some sort of cross in almost every single time, or at least win a corner kick.
Yes. I have a feeling Tobin Heath is going to be spending a lot of time getting knocked over and being frustrated, but still getting the call. I think Tobin Heath is going to take some fouls. Spain do not shy away from challenges. I forget, I think Lucia Garcia, has 7 fouls over the 3 games.
Yeah.
I think at Tobin Heath.
My guess is that's after being dispossessed.
Yes, but that could see that. That could well be, yeah. So I think Tobin Heath is probably going to get knocked around a lot, but I still want to see Tobin Heath going at people and causing problems.
Anything special you think the US should do, like man mark Hermoso or anything like that?
No, I don't think so, because I think then you are sort of really adjusting what you're trying to do. And I think anytime you're doing your plan 99% but changing it up 1%, it's still change. And I don't know if that's necessarily the best approach versus... I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say be arrogant and just go at Spain and destroy them, but I think if you have the front foot from the first minute and you're challenging Spain and you're putting them on the defensive and putting them on their heels, I think that's the better game plan than sort of sitting off and seeing what Spain try to do.
I mean, if we can prove early on that your possession game doesn't work against our press, then not Christian press, but
exactly
the press, then suddenly I think that's going to worry Spain.
Yeah, it's the tactic of attack the strongest point, and if you break the strongest point, then they're pretty much broken.
All right, well that's the plan then.
There you go.
So we will be back tomorrow to review USA versus Spain,
like the British Navy did way back when.
I guess they did.
There you go.
With Elizabeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So USA
She did it. Queen Elizabeth and her... I know they weren't around then, but I'm going to say it anyway. Queen Elizabeth and her corgis. That was actually who did it. Is
that the original corgis?
Yeah, that's why the Navy was so good, because the corgis were so cute, but vicious.
Oh, okay.
So nobody wanted to fight them, but then they went for the ankles.
It's definitely late here, isn't it?
It is.
Okay, so tomorrow it's Spain versus the US at noon, and it's Sweden versus Canada at 3 p.m. We'll have reviews of both of those games out Monday evening. Sound fair?
It does.
All right.
I'm slightly concerned that you know me so well to the point where you're like, oh boy, it's like Gremlin style that if we start recording past 11 o'clock, suddenly there's trouble for me.
Don't feed us coffee after 9 p.m. All right. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time, all the time, to talk to me this evening.
Avoid the corgis.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll be back again tomorrow.